All right, so our stick bouncing ball, there it is. Okay. So this one is PokeeMech. So our assignment name is PokeeMech thing. PokeeMech. Oops. And the due date for this one will be the day we get back from break, which will be the 5th. March 5th. Nope, not March 5th. That's the day we're gone. 12th, March 12th, sorry. So it'll be March 12th, 2018. And then this description is we are exploring ways to rig a mechanical character. Our learning objectives is we need to use set-driven keys, connection editor, and expressions. And we want to be able to rig the propeller to go up and auto spin. So that's what I showed last time, was how you can rig the propeller to move up and expand. And then also how we can control the speed of the propeller. And then rig the iris to open and close. And then rig the arms and hands. And create easy to operate controls for each of these. And then finally show off each rigged item. So today I'm going to go over the iris and the arms and hands. And then after that, it's pretty much just making a little animation with the character. The animation way that the bare minimum kind of thing is literally just showing off each control. Show how you can move it, show how the propeller comes up and spins, show how each arm can move in and out, how the fingers can move, and then that's it. Typically people, if you have time, you do that, or you don't have time, you just do that. If you have more time, you can actually make a little story about the little character. Okay, so I showed a couple examples before. You can review those from previous lectures. There's no planning involved in this one. For your project folder, I want only the essentials, which is your scenes, source images, and movie. Okay, you may not have any source images, any textures you may use on your stuff. You may have some things. You may have put a picture on the Pokeball or whatever. That would be a source image. Your scene is the file we're working on, and then your movie is just your last movie, all rendered out just like we did the other ones. Our movie will be that, and then we will still use the same stuff. So rendered movie of animated PokeeMech. So this will be 960 by 540 at 30 frames per second. There's another one inside the thing there, Dennis. Your name, turn in date, class name and number, all that stuff. And then I believe, winter. Mech rigging, 8 points for that one. Obviously, make sure you put your name on it. This is usually the best time. Put your name on it now. That way you know you have it. All right, any questions on the sheet yet? Yes, sir. Yep. All right. So the first thing I'll do is show how we can animate the lens that's inside here, okay? Now, when you're rigging something, you always want to look at where am I going to control that from? Where does it make the most sense? In this case, if I'm moving this rig around like this, it might make the most sense to just have a control over here for opening and closing the iris, okay? Or even moving that lens in and out. That might be something I want to do right from this spot. As opposed to, let's say I made another circle and put it out here, then I would click on that. That seems like counterintuitive because it's right there, okay? So I'm going to add another couple attributes to this. One's going to be lens in and out. The minimum will be 0, the maximum will be 10, and then we add. And then the next one will be iris, open, close. Same thing, 0, 10, and 0. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is make sure everything is kind of organized correctly. If I put things in the wrong order now, or if they're in the wrong order now and I come back later and I start adding these controls, it's going to screw everything up. So I'm just going to grab one of these pieces and hit F, and that takes me into, here's the lens, here's the iris, here's the old lens, which is this extra one that I've added inside there, okay? So these two items need, they don't need to be together. I just need to make sure that they're grouped accordingly. So the iris is in its own group, and the lens is in its own group. That way when I move this, the iris isn't moving, because I don't want the iris to like pop out of the head. So that's correct there. They're also all connected to the Pokey ball, which is the top thing, so that's all good too, okay? So first thing, they're good. So you don't need to change anything, but just be aware that they have to be some kind of organized thing. If they were out here just floating as separate objects, they need to be in the group. All right, so first thing I'll do is the the lens in and out. So I could do this a few different ways. Set driven is going to be the most straightforward method, so I'm going to use that. So I'll use set driven. Actually, let's use a different one. Okay, let's use this. Let me see how far out the lens would actually move. So just to exaggerate it, maybe it would move out that far. That seems ridiculous, right? Let's just say it goes that far, okay? So I'm going to use the connection editor. And now when you look at these, I'm showing you the connection editor, the set-driven key, and then expressions. I want to see examples of these. Doesn't mean you have to use those examples in those exact spots. So if you find a better way to do something, or a different way, or some other way that you want to play with, feel free to explore those methods, okay? So the driven object, the controlled object in this case, goes on the right side. The item that's going to be controlling it goes on the left side. So I just click that little controller and load that. Any new attributes I've created end up on the bottom. So lens in and out is here. And then I want to control the translate of this lens. Now if I'm not sure which direction, I can click the lens and then look here and see which one is moving. Translate Z moves, so that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to find Translate Z, and there we go. So this is how easy the connection editor is. I just tell it this is going to control that. And now when I click on this and drag, now that works. Now this is where those limits come in, because obviously going to 10, that doesn't make sense to go all the way that far. Maybe I'll go to 5. Okay, so I'm going to go to Edit Attributes, Lens in and out. My maximum now is 5. So now it's only going to go that far in and out of his eye. So that works. Super easy to set up. Now let's do the iris opening and closing. Now the way that this works is each one of these pieces has a pivot point. Let me isolate this so we can see it. Has a pivot point right at the start of this so that I could just rotate it. So the pivot is in a specific area, allowing me to rotate these things. Okay, so when I originally created this, I made one of these, made sure the pivot was where the thing would pivot from, and then I just duplicated it in a circle form. And then I was able to create the iris. So now with this, all of these are going to be driving or driven by that. So we'll notice here, as I rotate this in, the furthest this thing is going to go is to about -40. Okay, so I could again use the connection editor for this. That's a possibility. I could also use set driven. I could also use expressions. Okay, I'll show you the connection editor so you can see it. So this only allows you to add one at a time. So I would have to reload each one of the right ones at one time and then connect it to that same attribute of the controller. That's a lot of work to do, okay? And then because this is going all the way to 40 when it rotates, then I would have to go to this iris open and close and set that to go all the way to 40, which is a huge hassle having to scrub all the way to 40. So I'm going to do this a different way, okay? Expressions also, I could do the same thing. I would just have to type those values in. So just so you can see that, I'm going to go to, what was it, rotate Z? Yes. I'm going to go to expressions for this. I'm going to copy my expression down here. And I'm going to make this equal to my controller. So my controller's name is, where is he at? Let me just copy this first, and then go back to that. Because the name's already in here, in this one right there, so I can just steal this. PokeeController dot iris open close. All right, so now this is doing the exact same thing that the connection editor did, except it's in text form. So it basically just takes one item and makes it equal to another item. So now when I go to this, and I go to the iris open and close, let me get inside of him. There we go. And I use it, you'll see that only one of these is going to move. Okay, now the issue that I'm having is two things. One, this is going to a +10, the other one was a -40. That's how far it was rotating. If I click on this, you can see it rotates to -40 to get on the inside. So not a huge deal. I can always just multiply this times -40. There we go. And now this iris open and close will go to -40. Seemingly it should go to -40. That's 0, yes. Oh, -400 apparently? No? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Wade. Times -4, not -40. That doesn't make sense. I know what's going on next door. There we go. So as long as you know your math, this is a lot easier. There we go. -40, boom. Okay, now this part is a bit easier because I could just copy this expression and just paste it for each one of those. So again, something else that I could do in here too. That way it's just a bit easier. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it however many times. Make sure that each one of these has a semicolon at the end of it, otherwise we're going to get an error. And then I just have to change the number. So it goes from 1 all the way to 12. So if I start at the top, there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12. All right, so I hit edit, there's no errors. If I grab my controller, there it is. Now the lens opens and closes. Sweet. All right, now just to show you this other method, let me move this here. So just for ease, I'm just going to use the same controller, and I want to rotate this item. Okay, so I'm not going to use expressions. I'm going to use sort of the connection editor. So there's something called the node editor inside Maya, and basically what it is just like here is my cube, and every object in Maya is two pieces. This is the cube's translates, rotates, and scales. This is what it looks like. Okay, so every item in Maya has two things. So because I'm dealing with the rotation, I'm going to play with this one here. And I'm also going to find the Pokey controller and drag that into here with the middle mouse. And he has a shape node and, again, the other node. Okay. Now, if you look at the regular controller, that's where my attributes are. Now, I can access any of these by opening up these little buttons here and opening up these buttons here. So now what I can do is, let's say I put this like so. I can take the iris open and close and connect it right to rotate Z. Okay, now Maya is going to put its own little converter thing in the middle of this, let it do the converter thing. But now if I click on this and I use that iris open and close, you'll see how it's able to rotate that item 10 degrees. Now what this gives us though is a pretty easy way to just drag items and connect them to other things. And there's a lot of stuff inside here that we, in this case we're not going to use, but later on inside Maya, if you stick with Maya and you start playing with it, these will become incredibly helpful to use, especially other programs that use this kind of node-based setup. Now I'm going to add something else inside here too. So I don't believe that they have a create window inside here. I'm pretty sure. Nope, they don't. Okay. So I'm going to go to my Hypershade, which is this little blue icon. And I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to go to General Utilities, and there should be a Multiply Divide. That's what I want. And then you'll see that that also gets connected inside here. And this is basically just a a multiply and divide, like literally a multiplying type thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and drag it into here and say input 1x. And then I'm going to take this, input 1x, and I'm going to drag it to rotate z. Okay, Maya does its thing again where it does a converter. This is the old converter. I can delete that. I don't need it anymore. Now what this does is it takes the value, whatever the iris is set to, it's going to multiply it or divide it, and then it converts it, and then it puts it into that value. Now here's where it's cool because, let me just set this on the other screen. So this still goes from 0 to 10, so that doesn't change. But if I double click that multiply divide, it brings this up. So here is the first number, so that's the iris. This is what it's multiplying times. So if I set this to times 4, or sorry, -4, now this one will go from 0 to 40. I lied. Why aren't you working? Let's try that again. Multiply, divide. Input 1 times that. That should be working. Oops. Iris open, close. Multiply, divide, yes. Let me open this up and see. Oh, that's why. Because I took the same value, I need to take the output x and put it into that. Just delete this. There we go. All right, so now this will work because I took basically the same exact value through it. There we go. And what's cool about this is that you don't need to go into an expression. So some people are very uncomfortable with expressions because it's text, and if you type something wrong, it's, you know, very easy to mess stuff up. So now just by typing in a new number there, I can control how much this thing is going to rotate just based on that multiply divide. And then if I have more than one item, let's say all of these, and I open my node graph, and I drug these in there. Yes, you stay there. I could basically take the same item output, there you go, and drop this into its rotate Z for that one, and then do the same thing here. Grab the output, drop it into this one's rotate Z. And this process can go a bit quicker than having to type something in over and over and over again, especially if you're not comfortable doing expression type things. There we go. So I think that's all of them. So now I can click this and click that. Oops, I missed one, but you get the idea. Okay? So just another way you can kind of do that kind of setup. Cool. So now this controller allows me to open and close the iris. And I can go and move my lens in and out. That's awesome. So now I need to set up the hand controls so that I can actually move the hands in and out. So I'm going to just collapse everything here. I'm going to create another controller. In this case, I just made a NURB circle. You can make a whatever kind of curve under these menus or the other ones that I showed before. I'm going to move this until it's right on the hand. So I'm holding down V and just middle dragging it until it lines up right with that joint. Yep, it looks like it's there. And then I'm going to rotate it so that it's facing the same direction. I'm going to put it inside of my Pokey controller group, so I just middle drag it. And then I'm going to add some attributes. So the same thing I did last time, underscores first. So I have a little divider. And then I'm going to add controllers for finger curl. Oops, index, finger curl. I'm going to go -10, +10, and 0. And then I will do middle finger curl. And the reason I'm doing a negative is because I want to have the ability to bend it backwards in case for some reason I need the finger to go backwards. Now all of this rigging stuff would apply also to something like After Effects, because After Effects has a lot of ways to rig things inside there too. So if you built a whole character, you'd be going through the same kind of steps and setup. What else? Let's do a grip. This one I'm going to go -10 and 10. And then I'll do a stretch. -10 and 10. All right, so I have 5 controls over here. And the reason that I did that is so I could then duplicate this and move it to the other hand, and now that one has 5 without me having to redo all of those and possibly mess up. There we go. All right, so this will be left hand controller, and then this one will be right hand controller. I always like to name them whatever the actual character's right hand is and character's left hand is, because that makes it a little bit easier to see. Cool, so everything is in there. If I click this and move it, everything moves. Yep. Okay, so now I need to freeze the transform on these, because anytime we rig something, we want a way to reset it so that it moves back. So right now, if I were to just move these, I'd have to figure out where they were to get them back there. So I'm going to modify freeze transform. And that resets all of these without getting rid of where they were at. It keeps them in the exact same spot. Okay, so now if I mess up, I can just reset these and they go back. Cool. All right, so we'll start off with this hand here. And I need to, first I'm going to set up the rig for the arm, and then I'll worry about the fingers. Okay, So the way that we rig an arm inside Maya is we use something called IK handles. So under the rigging, under skeleton, we're going to create an IK handle. The default settings are cool. All we have to do now is click on the shoulder, which is there, and then click on the wrist, which is there, that joint. And now we get an IK handle that we can then move the hand around. If you've used After Effects, there's something called Duik, which is D-U-I-K. IK is the IK handle that they're referring to, okay? So this is where you would be using stuff like that. Now, on this IK handle, we never actually want to move the IK handle directly. The hand right now, or the arm right now, is at a 90-degree angle. If I move this and I need to reset it, I can't just reset these to 0 because it puts it at a crazy spot. It's gone, okay? So what I want to do is I want to take this IK handle and parent it to this thing. Okay, so I'm just going to grab the IK handle, shift-click my circle, and then hit P to parent it. Now that it's parented, I would never grab the IK. I would grab this circle and move that. And if I need to reset it, I reset that controller. Okay, so that again will make your life a bit easier. Now whatever we do on the right side, we're going to do on the left side too. So I will create an IK handle here. Skeleton, IK, click the shoulder. Nope. Click the shoulder, where are you at? There it is. And then click the wrist. Shift click this and then parent it there. And now that works. Okay. So hands are still at 90-degree angles. These are reset back to where they were. I need a way to control the elbow, so I'm going to add in a new controller. Actually, just so it's a little bit easier to see what's what, I'm going to create a locator. And I'm going to basically move this like right behind the elbow. And I'm using my V key to snap it, so it's right behind the elbow. All right. So same thing that we did before. I'm going to parent these in to my Pokey controller. And then I'm going to freeze my transforms. I'm going to give them a name. Oops, I guess I only did that to one. Let me freeze that one. Go. So this will be left elbow controller. And this one will be right elbow controller. So and now I need to get them to work. So I want to be able to move this up and down and have the elbow move up and down. Okay? So I'm going to grab the IK handle. Oops, sorry. I'm going to grab the IK handle first. Shift click the locator. And then under constrain, I'm going to say pull vector. Oops. Other direction. Locator first, then IK handle, then pull vector. There we go. So you saw his elbow move up slightly. I need to move this down so that it's lined up perfectly with it. So I hit undo so that I can get this perfectly lined up with the elbow joints. So I'm just moving my arrow and then moving my mouse over here where the joints are. All right, so that looks like it's lined up. Let me freeze my transform again. And then let's try that again. Click this, marquee the IK handle, constrain, pull vector. Yep, a slight movement, but nothing horrible. That's good. Same thing here. Good. So now I have a controller to move this, and I have a controller to move that. So very easily I can move that whole arm around using my locator here and this, oops, and this. Now we're done with the IK handle, so I'm just going to hide it. So I'm going to marquee it and hit H, and that goes away. I'm going to marquee this locator or this IK handle and hit H, and that goes away. Okay, so now we're only selecting stuff that we actually would want to move. All right, so now let's set up some controls for these fingers. So I'll show this one and then this one, and then the rest you can surmise based off of that. All of these can be done with set driven key. And all the ones for the hand, the driver is going to be this circle. So the driver will control everything for that hand. So left hand always gets controlled by this circle. And because we're doing the index curl, I'm going to grab the 2 index finger joints, which are these 2 right here. And then I'm going to load those as my driven. I also need to see which direction they would be rotating in. So it looks like the rotate Y is the one that they're going to be rotating in. There we go. So I'm going to grab these. I'm going to hit rotate Y. I'm going to hit index curl here. I make sure all these are 0. So index curl is at 0. My joints, their rotate Y is 0. So then I hit key. Then I'm going to go back to my controller and set this to positive 10. And then rotate this what I want positive 10 to look like. So I'm just grabbing the joints and rotating what I want to look like when I go to positive 10. That looks pretty good. So I hit key. Then I'm going to grab my controller again, set this to negative 10, and then put what I want this to look like at negative 10. So maybe like a little bit back like this, and then a little bit back like that. And then hit key again. Come on. So now if we look at this, I have a controller that will control that finger just bending. Reset it to 0. When I do middle finger, I do the same exact process. I grab the 2 joints. I load those as my driven. I make sure that everything is zeroed out. So left hand controller, middle curl, this is 0. My middle fingers, rotate Y, are also 0. I can set a key. You always do the driver first. So I set this to positive 10. Then I grab these and I rotate it. Whoops. See, and I grabbed the wrong piece. I grab the right piece here. Nope. See, I grabbed the wrong one, so I have to hit undo. Yep, there we go. And make sure that I grab these 2 joints. There we go. And then set my driver. Set this to 10. Then rotate. And then key that. And then set my main controller back to negative 10. And then just put what the finger is supposed to look like at negative 10. So now I can test it out and make sure that, yes, it does work. And I'll just do pinky curl because I'm right there anyway. Make sure I grab both of them. Make sure this is at 0 and it's set to pinky curl. Hit key. Reset this to positive 10. What do I want to look like at positive 10? Probably like that-ish. And then I set a key. Then I go to what? Negative 10. And then I set this to negative 10. And set a key. And so now I can test out these 3 controllers. If I grab all 3 of them, you can see how now I can move all 3 of those pretty quickly. Sweet. So now when I do something like grip or stretch, I need to make sure all of these are loaded in there. So there's a left index, base, and middle. There's middle, base, and middle, and pinky, base, and middle. There's grip. They're all still rotating on the Y. I key it. Make sure everything is zeroed out first. Set this to positive 10, and then just put what I want this to look like at positive 10. So maybe like right there. And then negative 10. Give it a little rotate back. And key that. Okay, so I'm always resetting this back to 0 before I go on to the next one. And then when I do stretch, I'm going to be rotating on the Z direction. Now you'll see I can't really rotate it too far. I would just do it slightly either way. Okay? So I'm going to set this to Z, set this to stretch, make sure everything's zeroed out, hit a key, and then set the stretch to 10, and then just rotate this one slightly that way, and this one slightly that way. And that's all I'm doing pretty much for that one. Okay, go to -10, do the same thing the other way. If I go too far, the bar will come inside. That doesn't look weird, right. There we go. So now just a little bit of a wiggle on there, that's it. And then grip, and then index curl. Now they all are compounding on top of each other. So if I do the grips, and I do the curl, and I do the stretch, you'll see how they actually like buckle inside each other. So the idea is that with all these ones here, you should be able to get him into a, you know, if he needed to grab something, he could grab something. Now whatever I do to this one, I have to do to that one as well, okay? So just keep that in mind that I would then go over here and do the same exact setup. If you mess up, the easiest thing to do is just to grab the joints. You can see how they have keyframes set here. I would just right click and then I would say break connection. And that would eliminate the keyframes on there, eliminate the set driven, and then we could just redo that. All right, now the last thing we need to do, and this is probably the most difficult part of this, is we need to get the hand to tuck inside the body. Okay? Now the way that we do that is I'm going to make another attribute. Hand or arm in, out. So this is just going to be 0 and 10. So 0 will be out here, 10 will be with it tucked inside. Okay? Now I can't do a set driven on this, because if I do a set driven on this piece, then I can't move it around. There's no other way for me to control it. All right? I can group this piece to itself. So I just grouped that curve. And then I'm going to put the pivot point right here. So I'm holding down D and V and middle dragging. That looks pretty good. So now I'm moving around this whole thing, and then I'm going to basically just tuck this inside the body. Arm, left arm, tucker. Okay. Now for this to go inside the body, I'm going to test it out first. You'll see that I hit this point where it just hits this area and it won't actually go inside, because I have to also grab the shoulder and move the shoulder inward too. Okay, so it's going to be two steps. One is moving this left arm tucker. The other one is going to be moving the shoulder. And then the final piece is going to be moving this cap, just to make sure that we're lined up perfectly. Okay, just rotating that cap. That cap should really be frozen, so I'm just going to freeze the transforms on it. There we go. All right, good. So I'm going to grab my left arm tucker. I'm going to grab the shoulder, and I'm going to grab the cap. And I'm just going to go click on one of these attributes, doesn't matter which one, and then go to my set driven key. And I'm going to basically control all their translates and rotates in order for this thing to get tucked inside there. I'm going to grab this, which is my controlling object. That'll be my driver. And this arm in and out will be what gets controlled. So arm in and out's controlling all of these items, translates and rotates. So right now everything is where it needs to be at the start of this, all tucked in. I hit key. Then I'm going to go here and set this to 10. Grab all my pieces, and then start to move it inward. Now I don't just grab everything and just move it in because it's going to break. I need to grab just the left arm tucker and just the shoulder and just start pushing those in. Okay, like I said, this will be probably the most difficult part just because it's kind of like awkward to get it tucked into that spot. All right, so that takes care of pretty close to the edge there. Now I can take the hand and tuck the hand inside. In order for this to line up correctly, you may want to just do one at a time, like grab it this way, and then go this way, and then go this way, and then go that way. So you can see how I'm kind of getting closer to it. Maybe grab the shoulder at this point and scoot that back some. There we go. And maybe even up or down some. There we go. That's good. All right. Oops. I think I moved the wrong thing. Let me hit undo. Yep, I grabbed this and moved it. I don't want to grab that and move it. I need to make sure I grab that Tucker one. Now, it doesn't matter if I deselect stuff out in here, because I can always just reselect it before I set a key. So I'm just grabbing all of these, moving them into position, grabbing the Tucker, moving that over. That's pretty close. I'll grab both of these and scoot it out some, scoot it over. And then maybe I can rotate this cap. And I could even adjust the position of the cap slightly if I need to. All right, so that looks pretty good there. I think I can probably tuck it just a little bit more in. And back. And give that a little rotate. There we go. So that's pretty good right there. So now I'm going to make sure I grab all these again and hit key. Now this is where it's going to get funky, because when I grab that controller that's inside here, that's inside the arm, and I start moving it out, watch what happens to this. It's just going to go right through the body. Okay, so obviously it can't do that, so what I have to do is go to, let's say, 4.7, and I have to grab the items and make them, again, look like they're kind of appearing like they're coming out of that area. So this arm has to be back inside the body. It has to be pretty tight to it because of where it's at. And that shoulder needs to be adjusted so that it looks like it's there. And then I key it again. Then I'm going to grab that controller, which is right hand controller. Nope. Left hand controller. There it is. And then test it out. So you see there's a little wobble in there. You can, again, go back and set some more keys. You don't really need to worry about it too much. I'm going to go here to where we're almost at the end and do that again. So I just need to take the shoulder and just adjust the shoulder's position some. I just pushed it out more. And then keyed it again, grab the left-hand controller. Oops, a little bit of a flip right there. Let's see why. Maybe that shoulder is too close. Oops, grab just the shoulder. And the Tucker. There it goes. So like I said, this part will be the trickiest just because of how many different times we have to set a key on this just to get it to come in and out. There we go. All right, now the hand does do that, but I think I can probably go to the grip and shrink the grip down, so now it looks like it's tucking in. Right? And then right here it goes through the body, again, just kind of going through. Grab the Tucker. There it is. And key everything again. There we go. So now we have one control that pulls it in and out of the body. And don't worry, like I said, don't worry about the kind of wiggliness of it. For this first one, it's going to be a lot easier than doing it the other way to make it nice and smooth. Cool. And then we do, again, the same process on that side. All right, then the last thing I need to do to rig this guy is just give him a little bit of wrist control. So in case I needed to, let's say, rotate his wrist, I can do that. So I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to go to, not Create, I'm going to go to Modify. Do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to just grab this and just rotate it like that, okay? So this is the Rotate Z. That's what I want to do that on. So on this, I want to grab my Rotate X and have it control the Rotate Z. So this is where the node graph is good too, because I can just do like I did before. Graph this out. I click that button, and then it brings in, here is the left palm. That's what I want. And then here's my left-hand controller. And so I just drag this down here. There it is. So I'm going to take my Rotate X for this one. And set that to the Rotate Z for that one. Oops. And it looks like we're backwards, so that's not a huge deal because we always have our multiply divide node that we can just add in there. There it is. So this goes into here, input 1x. Yep. Okay. And then this right here is going to be the other. It'll be the output x, and that will go into this one's other Rotate Z. Now again, I'm doing it this way. You could definitely do it a different way using the expression editor. It's actually my preferred choice. Oops. So now I can click this and rotate. What? Oh, I didn't change it. I have to grab the other multiply divide node. There we go. And set this to -1. That way to rotate backwards. There we go. Sweet. Right, so now he's, except for this arm, he's fully rigged. Okay, and the idea with this is that I can take him and I can move him. I can grab this and control what his arm is facing. I can grab this, control his propeller coming up, the speed of his propeller, the lens in and out, the iris opening and closing. We can't see it right now, but it's doing it. And then his fingers obviously moving all in all these directions. Okay, so then the rigging part of this is done. Now it's just a matter of going through and animating all of the different features on him. Now everything that we've done for the previous ones still apply as far as animation goes. There's only one thing that I have to show for texturing, which is how to texture this lens so that we can actually see through it. So if I render this out, nope. All right, just use Maya's render then, apparently. So when I render this out, this lens obviously is not going to be transparent. There we go. So I'm going to add a new material to it. I'll add the same one we used before, this AI standard surface. I'm just going to render that region there. This little red box, you can just draw a box and then hit this, and it'll render just that area. Okay, so I still can't see through it, which makes sense because I haven't done anything to this. You can go to the presets and choose something like glass and say replace, and it'll replace it with a glass material. Okay, so now this has a glass material on it. You'll see it's still not transparent. It has a stupid thing inside of Arnold where I actually have to click on a surface, go to the Arnold section of the shape node, and tell it that it's not opaque. And then if I save this one and then go to that one, we should see a difference in transparency. Yep, that definitely is transparent now. Before, after, okay? So typically people run into an issue because they want to see the lens. They can't see the lens because that thing is in the way. So now we should be able to see it. What do I have here that's blocking it? Oh, that's just another piece of glass. Yep. So I had a couple pieces of glass there. That's what that is. So I'm just going to assign that same glass material to it. Make sure the other one is opaque as well. Now Arnold wants to open up, and now I can see that iris inside there. Okay. Now if you don't want to see, because you can, if you look like straight back, you can see the propeller. Typically you're not going to see it if you're at certain angles, but if you do see it and you don't want to see it, all you have to do is just take this piece here, duplicate it, and then just give this a solid black color. So I'll assign a Arnold shader to this and just make it black. And now when we render this, we should see the iris through it. There it is, and then we just see that black shape way in the back. Okay, and then I also have the other one, which is this other lens. So if you wanted to, you still have to rig the other lens no matter what, but if you want to render this one out instead, you could do that too. And this one's kind of neat because it has so much more detail than the other one. So you could actually take each one of these pieces, give them a material, and you could also make these under the lights. You can say mesh light. I do apparently one at a time. But now what that mesh light should do is that would then start giving off illumination. And I'm not a big fan of that one on this specific scene. I'll just undo that. There we go. If you go to emission, you can play with this setting, which is how much light it's actually emitting. Not actually light emitting, but just kind of like a bit of a glow, basically. So now that it has a bit more of a glow to it than it had a second ago. So again, something else you could use inside there. You could also create a control that would allow you to switch between the two lenses. So again, more possibilities, more fun stuff you can do. All right, so finish the rendering part, and then you can, or the rigging part, and then you can start playing with the other stuff, adding the animation, obviously, and then the scene if you have time for a scene. Basic materials on this, don't go crazy with colors, don't go crazy with lights, just, again, keep everything kind of minimal as much as you can. Cool? Questions?